All right, we are live once again. Aloha and welcome everyone to another Paradigm Shift Central team podcast. Today's topic is on spiritual wisdom of healthy relationships. My name is Brendon, Mystic Spider-Man, Skull Babylon, and so grateful to be able to have you here with us once again for another heart-expanding, mind-opening, heart-expanding discussion. And as always, we got some beautiful shifters. We got some fellow conscious creators here within the broadcast tonight, and I'm just going to bring them up on camera. We've got a small group to start off with, but I know the conversation is going to go deep. We've got myself, we've got Iain, and we've got Ekua. I always pronounce it wrong. Close enough, Ekua. And we've also got Kristen tuned in as well. And also, I believe Iain is also has a guest with them as well. So thank you to those of you who are joining us here. Thank you to those of you in the YouTube chat. We're just going to get things started here with a little bit of an introduction, quick little meditation, just to be able to drop into that energy, and just a couple housekeeping notes before we get started officially. So for those of you who may be new to this, again, Paradigm Shift Central, this is a community of spiritual seekers and conscious media creators. So many of the people that we see here on the broadcast, they're people that are creating conscious content to be able to help inspire people, lead them back to their heart, and help change the world. So this is a community of shifters, people who are actively helping assist with the shift in consciousness. And if you're tuned into this, then we invite you to be able to connect with the shifter within inside your heart as well. So all the links that you need for the info for this are in the info for this video, including our Paradigm Shift Central team Discord, our Patreon, where you can join as a member for $11 a month, which is a super awesome value to be able to get access to ongoing member events, access to me for conscious media creation coaching, access to the full Paradigm Shift Central Discord, plus lots of other perks that we got going on there as well. Within the links to this video, you'll also find the links for all the creators that we feature within the broadcast. So I'm encouraging you to go and connect and see what awesome things they are up to. And plus, you probably hear me talking about this. You can also find the link for all the conscious creators that we have on Ibble as well. And again, Ibble is a new social media platform that myself and some of the other creators are focusing a lot of intention on. And we're also hosting additional events there also in the week. So if you're looking for more paradigm shift conscious content, then be sure to check out Ibble and check out some of the conscious media events that I'm hosting there on Wednesdays at 8 p.m. EST, in addition to these events that we do on Thursdays at 8 p.m. EST. So grateful to be able to have everyone here. And again, let's just take a moment to just be able to do a quick little meditation as we normally would. And then from there, we're going to go around the conversation and dive into this topic of spiritual wisdom of healthy relationships, obviously in theme with kind of like Valentine's Day and everything. And this is a topic that's always valuable to be able to go back to. So for those of you in the YouTube, for those of you here listening in the future, thank you so much. And go ahead and get yourself nice and comfortable. And let's just drop into a quick little meditation. And and then from there, we'll see what wisdom the universe has to be able to share through tonight's discussion. For those of you on TikTok and Instagram, if you guys want to join in on YouTube, go ahead and click the link in my profile. For any of the Paradigm Shift Central members, feel free to join in the Zoom at any point as you guys feel inspired to do so. You guys are always welcome. The more, the merrier. So go ahead and take a moment here. Let's just take this opportunity to just allow ourselves to just gently close our eyes. Just start to bring awareness to your breath. Just give yourself a chance to just slow down here. Soft, gentle inhales and soft, gentle exhales. And maybe this is the first time today that you've actually taken just a few moments to really just be with your breath. And so as you allow your breath to naturally unfold, just allow yourself to really just arrive here within the present moment. Allowing yourself to just arrive within the presence of the heart. And of course, the heart will be a very important theme of tonight's discussion, talking about the heart, talking about love, talking about the sacred mirrors that we all are. And so as you focus on your breath, allow yourself to just bring awareness to the gratitude within your heart. Gratitude for yourself, gratitude for the space, gratitude for the community, gratitude for the wisdom that we are holding space for to share. And as we just allow ourselves to just be here in this meditation, just taking a moment here to just visualize all of us just sitting in circle, sitting in sacred circle. As you just visualize all of us just arriving here in this moment, seeing each other's eyes, seeing the sacred journeys that have brought us to this point. And really just taking a moment here, like really, really deeply taking a moment here to acknowledge that each person that you see here in the circle is, yes, they're a person, but what does that mean? Each person is a vessel of experience, a vessel of knowledge, a vessel of wisdom. And so in the process of seeing that, we really get to be able to honor the fact that all of us have been on this lifelong journey of being able to learn about relationships between ourselves, between the world, and in the theme of tonight, between other people. And through those relationships, also understanding a deeper relationship of ourselves. So right now, just take a moment to really just honor the wisdom of relationships that all of us already innately carry. So as you look around the circle, you can maybe just put your hands on your heart and just allow yourself to just speak from your heart to their heart, to all the heart of the people tuned in right now. What would you want to say to them? Something to just be able to nurture their spirit, inspire their soul, perhaps related to tonight's theme. What do you want to say to everyone here in the circle tonight? Beautiful. It's just holding that wisdom in your heart, allowing yourself to receive the wisdom that is being shared with each and every single one of us. And so as we look around this circle, just allowing ourselves to continue to hold this vibration with us into tonight's discussion and hold this image in our mind. So wherever you're listening, tuned in, inviting you to be a part of this energetic circle that we are creating space for in order to be able to create this beautiful mandala of wisdom and inspiration. So with this vibration within our heart, may we carry it forward into tonight's discussion. And when you're ready, with a soft, gentle smile on your face and a little bit of excitement, slowly bringing awareness back to your physical body. And when you're ready, you can gently wiggle your toes, wiggle your fingers. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes and return your awareness to the space around you. Beautiful. Awesome. Welcome back, everyone. And we'll get right into things. And when we introduce ourselves, you guys can go around, and if you guys want to share anything that came up in the circle, like what you said to the other members in the circle, feel free. And I'll just share this real quick. What I heard kind of arise within my heart is this basic idea that the wisdom we live is the wisdom we give. So anything that we experience is something that we can share. And I think we often underlook the value of experience. So, I mean, in tonight's topic, going to be very relative because, like we're talking about like the dynamics and the spiritual wisdom of healthy relationships. Well, it's just like, man, well, sometimes the only way to be able to figure out what a healthy relationship looks like is to be able to go through the experience of the opposite of that, of the yin and the yang. And it's oftentimes like in the polar regions that we allow ourselves to be able to open up to more clarity. So with that said, for all of us here, just inviting in a little bit of gentleness and just being able to just like really like send a little bit of extra love to all of those wounds that each and every single one of us carry when it comes to relationships. And if we open ourselves up to this idea that it's just like, wait a second, like, yes, I've experienced those. Yet with those, it's also given me this wisdom. And now here we are together with the opportunity to be able to share it. So as a community, we continue to cultivate and take those steps closer towards healthy relationships. And we'll talk more about what that means. So I'll share a little bit more about what I think, but let's just get the talking stick passed around the circle and we'll introduce some of the speakers that we have here. Again, it's a smaller group, so we'll do our best to facilitate. And for the other members, if you guys want to join in partway through, not a problem. And we'll just kind of go with the flow. So we'll start off just inviting you guys to just introduce yourselves and, just share a little bit about, like when you think of what is the spiritual wisdom of a healthy relationship to you? What is a healthy relationship to you? And so just as a little bit of context, like obviously when we're talking about relationships, we could be talking about relationships to objects and material things and circumstance. For tonight's topic, we'll be talking about relationships in relation to people, specifically people, but not just romantic, also platonic. So just narrowing in on that. And yeah, thank you again, everyone, so much for being here. And I look forward to all being able to learn alongside. And for those of you in the YouTube and the TikTok and the Instagram, go ahead and leave your comments. And for those of you on TikTok and Instagram, click the link in my profile and tune in on YouTube. We'll pass the talking stick around then. So who would like to just be able to like introduce themselves first and just kind of share a little bit and not expecting you to share everything. We'll just kind of start bouncing things around. So whoever wants to go first, just go ahead and you can just put your finger up, put your hands up, and then we'll pass it over to whoever would like to be able to go first. And then again, I'll kind of like jump in here as well. Kristen, would you like to go first? Yeah. Perfect. All right, we'll pass it over to Kristen. Kristen, welcome back. Thank you so much for joining. And when you're ready, go ahead and introduce yourself. And what is the spiritual wisdom of a healthy relationship from your perspective? Welcome, Kristen. Oh, hold on, Kristen. I'm not sure if your audio is coming through. Can you guys hear Kristen? No? Okay. All right. It's not just me. All right. Let's just make sure. Might have to. Yep. Now you're good. Go ahead.
My name's Kristen, and I make crystal jewelry and do kind of healing sessions with people. And I think what came up for me in the meditation was, with the little message, was be authentic and honest with yourself. And so I just wanted to put that out there as something that came up from my heart about relationships. But in terms of like intimate relationships or friendships as well, I feel like they are like a collaboration of expansion together, and that I also really love relationships as just like a fast track to growth for both parties. Just being in intimate connection with people is just such the most potent mirror you could basically ask for, to see your own stuff and for people to investigate their stuff as well, and see what's going on and beneath the surface, because in friendships we can sometimes avoid that level of closeness that romantic relationships involve. And even though they can be turbulent sometimes, there's always growth there, and I really value that growth and feel like relationships are an awesome opportunity for collaborative expansion and support. So that's my share on that.
Wonderful. Thank you, Kristen, as we get things started here. And with that said, who would like to go next? We'll pass it over to the next person, and we'll just keep things flowing here. So Iain, would you like to go next? We can pass it over to you. That. All right, cool. All right, Iain, welcome to the circle. Thank you so much for joining. When you're ready, go right ahead.
Thank you. And I'm just grateful to be here, and always feel free to just call on me if I'm standing here looking at you. I kind of sit back because my old way of being was always driving forward. So I like to give everybody else the floor first, if they like it. So my name is Iain Gray. First and foremost, I'm a dad and a family guy, and just love my lady with all my heart and my child with all my heart. And that's my primary thing right now. I also create a lot of programs based on things that I learned over time. I've definitely gone through my share of hell, so to speak, with relationships and other areas of my life. And that led me onto the spiritual awakening journey to figure out how to clear those up. And when we were doing the meditation, authenticity also came up quite a bit. Just that is one of the key components to relationships for me that I've experienced, is when we can be completely authentic with each other. That's where that growth actually will happen, versus the older paradigm that I grew up in, which was more tribalism and relating. Like somebody said, I broke my leg, and rather than tell you a story, it was like, I broke my leg too. And then, or it was about sports team, or these random conversations that would happen, rather than like, this is what I'm feeling in my heart right now. And so I think that's a key component, is actually be able to speak from the heart, connect in with what's really going on inside, and be able to do that at any point in time. And recognize that, there's a quote that I think probably everybody's heard at this point. It's just, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. And I didn't understand that the first time I heard it, or the second time I heard it, or third time, and maybe I still don't understand it. However, right now, what that means to me, this came up in the meditation, was the teacher is always here, as long as I'm willing to be the student. And every interaction I have with a person or a place or a thing is really just a reflection of the vibration that I'm sitting in right here, right now. So that's actually very revealing and allowing me to grow in a new way, by recognizing that as long as I'm ready to be the student, then I'm gonna get the lesson, whatever it is. And I can be teaching and learning at the same time, and really actually kind of the same thing. So that's really where it lays out for me, is really around that, always being open and authentic, speaking from the heart, and allowing others to do so as well.
Thank you, Iain. Yeah, and again, even just as we're getting started here, I can already feel the paradigm shifting, and that's where, as we get going, once we kind of have gone through the introductions, we'll just kind of do popcorn style and intuitively just pass it around. One thing that just kind of came to mind here is that, it's interesting because like, we kind of have this idea that it's like, oh, like an unhealthy relationship is an unhealthy relationship, period. However, there's the relationships within the relationship. So, and this is kind of a question as well, like, is it like you can have a healthy relationship with an unhealthy relationship. And what I mean by that is that you can have a healthy perspective on being conscious that the relationship is unhealthy. And as long as you're conscious, as long as you're self-aware of the dynamics of what's happening, you can be in any circumstance. And then within that, you can still allow yourself to, like Iain was saying, be able to receive the lessons and the messages from it. I think in any circumstance, it's up to you to relatively speaking, to be able to decide, am I going to stay in this relationship? Is there something for me, or have I gotten what I need? And is it time for me to leave? Because sometimes there will be a dynamic where, an unhealthy relationship, what we identify as an unhealthy relationship, which I think, again, sometimes we just label any sort of conflict, we instantly might say, oh, that's unhealthy, as if conflict is unhealthy, which I think is a complete facade, right? Like, I think conflict is a natural part of any relationship. What we want to be able to focus on is how to be able to healthily, that's kind of a weird word, navigate those conflicts, right? So in any relationship, if a conflict arises, what's your immediate reaction? Is your immediate reaction to get up and leave like right away? Or do you sit with it, observe it, ask what's there for me to learn from this, and really just allow yourself to really be able to reflect, can I bring a healthy energy into this dynamic of like some sort of conflict that may be arising? Like this is where you might be in a circumstance where maybe a friend who you have like a deep relationship with over the years, and suddenly they do something and it really pisses you off. And your immediate reaction would be like, well, screw you. This is my excuse to say we shouldn't be friends anymore. Or you can take time to really be able to meditate on this and be like, well, you know what? Like, everyone kind of screws up. Let's just step back here. Let's take a moment. Let's try and be empathetic. Let's bring some more, because I think that's the thing, right? Like, as if we can bring as much empathy as possible to any circumstance without bringing an unhealthy amount of empathy, which maybe is a topic in itself, then, can we allow ourselves to approach what appears to be a conflict in a situation and help transform it, alchemize it as the shifters we are, alchemize that conflict, and to be able to create a healthy result out of it, where you can initiate a conversation and be like, hey, like that thing that you did the other weekend where it pissed me off and everything like that. Like, I'd like to be able to talk about that because it made me feel this way. And I'm curious if there's more that we can just kind of navigate and have through open conversation and authenticity and being real and being able to, in certain circumstances, look at the things that might always be easy to look at. But if it, it's one of those things, and I'll just say this and then we'll pass it over to Ekua, where in any circumstance, and again, relatively speaking, like it's your choice to remain in that relationship. Again, relatively speaking, it's your choice to be able to remain in that relationship. And so like, if you feel that intuitively, you're just like, you know what, like I'm being called into the conflict because I think that there's a way for this to be able to be transformed into something positive. Can in most circumstances, can what appears to be a negative circumstance, can it be transformed into something positive? If you start asking that question, how can this be transformed into something positive? How can this help me? How can this help the other person? And to be able to carry that conscious awareness and that conscious wisdom, that can create a great deal of leadership where normally a relationship might have just, you abandon ship and that's it. And maybe you see them in 5 years, and, synchronicity might bring you back together. Or if you really care about that relationship, it's your free will, then you can say, like, let's spend some more time with it. Maybe there's some healing. Maybe there's a deeper issue. Maybe it's not as personal as it looks. Let's just put a little bit more love into it and see what happens. And then if it doesn't yield the results that you were hoping for, make that choice again and just be like, you know what? It's in my personal relationship with myself to be able to say, I gotta step back. I gotta move on and everything like that. So giving yourself that respect to be able to know when to be present and when to be in that choice where it's okay to walk away, because the relationship with yourself is always going to be the most important relationship, relatively speaking. Anyways, just getting some ideas going here. I appreciate everything that's been said so far. Ekua, did you want to go next? We can pass it over to you, and welcome again. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me. Hey, everyone. So what came up for me was self-worth. And with self-worth, it's just a lot of times where we feel stuck or just stagnant, it's because we may lack self-worth. And when that happens, we don't feel as if we're able to be our authentic selves in different aspects in our lives, or sometimes in all aspects of our lives. And then this could be even when you lack the self-worth, you may not clearly know who you want to be, how you want to love, and valuing yourself. And I experienced this some years ago, and like I used to complain about, my relationships. So friendships, romantic relationship, my workships. And it's like, okay, well, you complain about it. What is it that you want? And because I didn't have that self-worth, I couldn't clearly define what it was, because I really did not know what I need, what was necessary for me. So that's what showed up for me when we did the meditation. And as far as what I do, I'm a spiritual life coach, a medium, a light energy worker as well.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you so much for being here. And again, at this point, let's just kind of go with the flow, and we'll just kind of open things up. So if anybody says something that you guys want to respond to, it's a small enough group here. Just raise your hand and we'll pass it around. Go right ahead, Kristen.
Oh, so stimulating already. It's just like throwing me back to like all these thoughts of other relationships. And I will admit consciously that there's like this small like amount of panic of like thinking about people that might be in challenging relationships and that they might be listening to this, because I had one of my first like adult relationships was very unhealthy, and like you bringing up empathy in relationships just made me be like, oh, and like thinking about it. But yeah, I think both what Ekua said and you about like the combination of you guys talking really stimulated me thinking about the balance between like self-respect and empathy. And also with the self-worth stuff is as a self-confessed like rescuer personality from my earlier adulthood, is this like if you derive self-worth from being empathetic, and that's the main area that you derive self-worth from, like you think that that's one of your like main skills and you just have that compulsion to be really empathetic, then you can sometimes accidentally land in situations where you aren't in self-respect and you're not in an expansive relationship it kind of, you feel like it's expansive because you're practicing your empathy, but your self-respect is depleting like over and over again from giving to someone that is not even nearly able to be empathetic to you in that situation. And so in the realm of like empathy and like troubleshooting relationships and assessing the value of like being a really giving person and being able to like be compassionate to people's maybe poor communication or like conflict strategies, I feel like I just really wanted to say that if you are an empathetic person, to really also train that muscle of being empathetic towards yourself at the same time, because as empaths and just rescuing kind of people, we will self-sacrifice a lot. It's just natural that we have that energy. But what I have found in my own personal history, and I've been a rescuer in romantic relationships and friendships as well. And there's been that dissonance with self-respect in the friendships too, where I'm the rock and then there's not that reciprocal rock situation happening. And it's not that it needs to be like an eye for an eye or anything, but there was moments where where I didn't recognize that I wasn't respecting myself in those dynamics. And what has ended up being the realization for me these days as being like a healer doing sessions with people and doing like emotional work is that that's actually one of your skills, probably because it's to do with your purpose of what you're here to do. And it's not just something that you get to bring to just the people in your sphere. It's because you have a compulsion to help people, and that's in your skill set, and that wants to be expressed in a way that is part of your purpose. But a lot of people can lump their purpose into their partner and like just go about their other stuff and do their work in the fields that they're working in that aren't as heart-led, and they're using that relationship to express that heart-led skill, whereas it might actually be medicine for a wider audience. And the reason why it's so tantalizing is because it's part of your purpose. So I just wanted to touch on that because that's been like my journey of my adulthood, is recognizing that I was really wanting to flex that skill, and I'm very incredibly empathetic, and I wanted to highlight the dangers of being super empathetic without having self-worth and not having self-respect, or the fact that you derive self-worth from that skill can sometimes lead you being really compassionate to people who don't respect you. And cultivating respectful relationships is just so important. And as younger empaths too, boundaries is one of the biggest challenges, and boundaries are the pathway to self-respect and generating respect from other people. So we don't want to be so compassionate to people that we are not compassionate to us, and we don't set boundaries because it makes them uncomfortable.
Thank you, Kristen. Very well said. I'll just say a couple things, and then I'll pass it over to Iain real quick. Again, just taking a moment here where it's just like, okay, like let's try and identify like what is a healthy relationship. Juxtapose what we're talking about the unhealthy relationship. I think the short answer to the idea of what is a healthy relationship, I think the answer is actually something that we can derive by studying nature and studying ecosystems. What is a healthy ecosystem? An ecosystem that is in balance, something that is an equal give and an equal take. So, I mean, when you think about it, with humans, like a healthy relationship is a relationship where both parties, not only is a relationship something that's in balance, but both parties have their own ecosystem that is also in balance. Now, again, that's not to say that, like we as humans are expected to be like always balanced all the time. I don't think that's natural. But I think what we allow ourselves to be able to move into is that as we mature, especially as we mature spiritually, we mature through our degree of consciousness when we can identify when we're shifting in and out of balance. And that's when we're also being able to more appropriately identify where our needs are, and that's where like a good, healthy relationship is a relationship where both partners are helping each other kind of like move in and out of that ebb and flow of kind of like being okay and having good days and having bad days and needing space and needing cuddling time, and just being able to understand that those needs are the fluctuating like dynamics of any sort of ecosystem. It's night and day sort of thing. You don't stop that. What you do is you honor it, and then you just allow yourself to get kind of what we were talking about earlier, get really good at communicating, understanding the subtleties. And then with that, you understand how to be able to meet those needs. Again, I can say like through, my own experience, like being in a healthy relationship right now with Lacey, and I kind of refer to it as like a sacred relationship, so to speak, a sacred union. Again, it's this union where we both want to be able to help each other grow. And then at the same time, we're both honoring each other as individuals. We're not trying to make the other person one thing or another. We're really just honoring each other as we are. And I think that deeper understanding of knowing ourselves allows ourselves to kind of create that foundation for the relationship to kind of like thrive into new areas where, as opposed when, I look at my own relationships in the past, past where they kind of had their different dynamics of not being always as healthy, or even looking at other friends' relationships where you would see it from the outside, and you look at the dynamics where you could see it, be like, oh, like that's not healthy there. What was always happening there? It would usually be that either both or one parties was like unconscious, like they were unconscious of their own behaviors. They were unconscious of how to take accountability for their own healing, and not even to say like, oh, they were doing something wrong. Honestly, all it means is that they're just at a certain point within their journey. But at the same time, it's not your job to do the work for them. But at the same time, every relationship will prepare you for the next one. So if you're a conscious person, you get into a relationship with an unconscious person, that can be a very powerful dynamic, because you might actually be able to help kind of lead them to that path. But at the same time, maybe you're not expected to lead them all the way. You might kind of like spend as much time as you can with them and then just be like, okay, like this is where, this is where our vibrations, I'll just say this real quick and I'll pass it to Iain. A very simple way of being able to understand the dynamics of relationships, again, studying nature, you think of it through the concept of vibration. When two things are at a resonating frequency, they'll naturally come together and they'll naturally create like a corresponding correlation. They'll become like a resonating frequency. Over time, two people come together at a resonating frequency and they come together and, hey, things are good. They're getting along. You're feeling that connection. You're feeling that vibe. But what happens over time is that people's individual frequency changes. So over time, suddenly this frequency changes and now suddenly it's not working in the same way. That doesn't necessarily mean that either of those people did something wrong. It literally just means that as the frequencies change, so do the dynamics of the relationship. And if your vibration is shifting in a way that's not matching the current relationship, that's okay. You don't have to think of it as a breakup. Rather, you can think of it as a breakthrough, meaning you're ready for that next vibration. You're ready for that next corresponding harmonic frequency. And when you begin to embody that within yourself, you're naturally kind of like attracted and stuff like that. It's interesting because when you kind of, the key part to attracting a healthy relationship, it really is the inner work. Because when you embody that, you'll reflect it, and then you'll meet that sacred partner who kind of reflects it back at you. If you still have things that you're working on, usually you'll reflect people that also have similar things that they're working on, and then you kind of get to work on it together even when you don't want to. But hey, that's the dynamics of life. So having empathy even in those moments, I think is important. Iain, went a little bit longer than I intended to, but go right ahead, passing it over to you. And Lauren, also welcome to you as well. We'll pass it over to you when you're ready.
I'm actually really glad that you jumped in there, because it was a really good segue. Some of the things we talked about before this was the law of vibration, and you just actually talked about it in play, right? Everybody says there's a common belief out there. I'm not going to say everybody says. There's a common belief out there that opposites attract, and that's true in polarity, right? Like magnets, the opposites attract. However, in vibration, like attracts like. So what ends up happening is we get into this common harmony, and that's why we get together, because we're in this harmonious vibration. Our polarities might be completely different. However, our vibration is like. So now we're matching, right? And then all of a sudden we might get some dissonance or disturbance in the field. That's the terminology that Emily and I use whenever there's some kind of conflict in the relationship. It's not to run away from it. It's like, hey, I have a little disturbance in the field. Like, I'm just feeling like the vibe, like what's going on with the vibe here. And that gives us an ability to look at the vibration together and be on the same side of the table, versus saying it's you or it's me, even though it's always me. However, we want to be looking at this thing together. At least it's my belief that it all starts with me. I'm 100% responsible for everything in my awareness. I'm 100% responsible for how I respond to that. That responsibility is actually the ability to respond. So I'm 100% responsible. I have the ability to respond to that. So I would never actually even use the terminology. I think I heard it earlier was something to the degree of, when that happened, you made me feel, or it made me feel. I would actually never say that something made me feel. I could say I felt. However, nothing outside is going to actually impact how I'm feeling. It's my perception. It's my perception, always my perception of that. So I felt it. It brought that feeling to my awareness. Oh, that's something I need to look at. So that allows me to be able to create a boundary when it comes to the difference between, you guys are really using the word empathy a lot. And I think that's so wonderful. A lot of spiritual circles use this word compassion a lot. And if we break down the word compassion, It's actually to join in the suffering with. And literally, that's what the word means. If we look at the etymology of it. So it's actually like if somebody has a broken arm and it hurts, like to truly be compassionate, I would have to break my arm and join in with them. And people say, use this However, empathy is in feeling with, in tune with, in vibration. Like, can you feel me? Can you feel me, bro? Like, I can feel what you're feeling right now. I know what you're feeling. Like, I'm not gonna go down there and feel that way, like as myself, but I can feel what you're feeling. And there's a huge distinction between those two, because when I'm just feeling you, I can help you. Or if somebody's just feeling me and I'm down, they can actually help me. But if they join down and go down with me, there's no way for them to help me unless I'm stepping on them and they can like allow me to elevate. And there comes in, I think earlier somebody mentioned something about what was the word? I use their terminology, savior. Like the relationships, there's like the victim, there's the savior, and then what happens is the savior always gets crucified at the end of the story. And I did that. I was very much a savior in my relationships. Another thing that really came to mind when you guys were talking was the fact that growing up, the relationships that I witnessed and the programs that people were running unconsciously or consciously, I have no idea, I'm not in their head, so I don't know which it was. The games that people played on each other, the deceit, like there was, when it came to relationships, it was always messy. I actually don't think I saw a functional relationship. And if I didn't even recognize it as a functional relationship because it was so confusing to me. Like I grew up watching family members just cheating on each other whenever and deceive each other whenever and like tell straight lies, get people arrested, like crazy Jerry Springer. I don't even know if Jerry Springer would have put us on TV, the stuff I saw. And I'm down to get into it if anybody has questions or whatever. Like I'm not like hiding any of that. I'm completely open to be authentic about it. However, what happened was I was following and repeating those patterns, and I ended up having all these limiting beliefs in my mind about who women were. All women are, and fill in the blank with anything that's negative. They use men for money. They use me for my time and energy. They like these crazy beliefs. They're all cheaters. They're all liars. Like I literally believed these things in such a fashion, and I would repeat it constantly. And then in my relationships, guess what would happen? I'd make it my reality. Whether they were cheating or not, whether they were using me or not, I would continue to make that the reality. And what ultimately ended up happening was it created the most toxic relationship that could possibly be there. There was tons of love. However, I didn't even realize I was creating it. It was actually just my beliefs. And I started learning about my beliefs and how I can like clean that stuff up and become conscious and watch my thoughts as something separate than me. And wait, that doesn't even seem true whatsoever. Why am I even repeating this? Why is this coming out of my mouth? Because I know I'm thinking it, but that doesn't even make any sense. And I started realizing where I was creating it. And the moment that I realized that it was me creating it through these beliefs that I had about other people and just projecting them on them, that was the moment where I was actually able to start making the shift and start to have different beliefs around things. And then all of a sudden create this amazing relationship with Emily, who hopefully will be able to join us at some point tonight. And it was just completely transformational. It was all me the whole freaking time. And I'm a little bit older, I think, than most people in this group. I've been through a lot of relationships, and I made a lot of messes, and I always blamed that other person. And whether it was an intimate relationship or a friendship, always me. It was always me. And it took me looking in the mirror and like say, what can I change about my perception? And now the experience that I have, like tonight, for example, this person I met. One time he was a real estate agent. He was showing me around. He also had a podcast. So I met him a second time, was on his podcast show. Really hit it off. A couple of days later, he fell down, bumped his head, lost all his memory. I've seen him 3 or 4 times since then. And every time I see him, tonight was one of them. He walked up to me and he just started spouting out from his heart this most authentic stuff of what he was going through in this clear, like beautiful vibration, and asking for me to reflect back for him what he was saying, for him to be able to see himself, for him to go through that confession and get this dis-ease out of him so that he could be cleared of it, like almost like confession in a church or something like that. Because now we're in this vibrational harmony, but he doesn't even remember me except for my name, that he likes me. But that's because the vibration I'm sitting in is creating that space for somebody that's that open to just like, so that's kind of how it works in my experience. So I'll pass this over. Anybody that wants to drop in.
Thank you, Iain. Yeah, lot of things that you said there. I'll hit upon real quick, and then let me know who wants to go next. Again, Lauren, I know you just joined, so you can let us know when you're ready. And anybody else, just go ahead and put your hand up. I'll just keep talking until somebody else is ready to be able to take the stick here. But yeah, Iain, thank you again for sharing. And Lauren, did you want to go next? Was that your hand up? No? Yeah. Yeah. Okay. All right. Perfect. Yeah. Just wave your arms around, then I won't miss it. Yeah. So, okay. I'll just say this. And again, this is sometimes it's saying the obvious, but what we're doing right now as a community, we're kind of like putting all these notes on the table so that we can get a better picture. And again, this is what I've observed through, other people's relationships as well as my own relationships, that it seems like, like in the relationships where things are probably not going in quite the way that people want them to go, it usually seems that there's like a lot of projection, like people, and it sometimes it's unconscious, right? Like people they're like putting this energy onto someone else, and they're just like creating this narrative inside of their own head about like what things are, or something like that. But yeah, like I think as you allow this kind of like gentleness to naturally arise within yourself, you can create this ability to be able to kind of like carry it with you into relationships, much like what Iain was talking about, where like a good relationship is a relationship where people like feel safe, feel seen, feel heard. So if we can create that intention to be able to cultivate that as a habit, I think out of that, naturally, that's like where like the relationships deepen, and like the roots grow, as well as like the flowers blossom at the same time. And again, those are friendships. Those are, like romantic relationships as well. Like some of those best relationships, they're relationships where it's like, oh yeah, we do cool things together, but why do I like you so much? I like you because, you listen to me. Or you reflect something back at me. It's usually like those kind of, you think about your favorite relationships, they're the type of relationships where it's just like, being with a person and just like feeling safe, feeling comfortable and everything like that. So, like, how do we do that? How do we cultivate that? The one thing I'll just say here real quick is that, and this goes for challenging relationships and everything. I talk about this all the time, but basically this idea that, in any circumstance in life, you can see things from an empowering perspective or a disempowering perspective. So when we are in those circumstances where, we feel like our energy is kind of being not respected quite in the ways that we want it to be, we can also see that as a valuable learning experience, where it's just like, actually, what, like those unhealthy relationships that we were in, those gave us strength to be able to know our own self-worth, and to know how to set boundaries, and to know how to be able to communicate to our needs, and to know when to walk away in an empowering way if we needed to. So again, like I can honestly say that like some of the hardest times in relationships, not just romantic, but also friendships, have been the most empowering experiences for me when I come out the other side of them. So if you're going through any experiences in relationships where it's like, oh man, things are pretty rocky right now, like hold strong, keep in your heart, and then lo and behold, you will come out the other side and be like, whoa, like, and what did you bring with you out the other side? And you brought with you this like deeper empathy for yourself and for others, and this wisdom and this more clarity on who you are as well. Anyways, more to talk about. Let's keep passing the talk and stick around. Lauren, we'll pass it over to you. Thank you so much for joining. And again, feel free to just introduce yourself, and we can just kind of start off with, like, what is a healthy relationship? What is the spiritual wisdom of a healthy relationship to you, or anything else you feel called to share? Welcome, Lauren.
Hello. It's so nice to meet you, Iain and Ekua and Spiral Soul Seed. I don't know your name. What is your name?
That would be Kristen.
Kristen.
Nice to meet you. So let's see. I loved how Iain and Brendon were touching on the law of vibration and being in sync with what we're bringing in the world. So relationships, it's so interesting looking at relationships coming from childhood and understanding our relationship with our parents and how that will reflect in every relationship that we carry on in our lives. Our subconscious mind, it's so built upon childhood and everything that we learn throughout childhood. So everything we took on from our parents, we will either unconsciously or consciously reflect that and continue that. So I grew up with a little bit of a harder childhood. My mother's a bit bipolar. And so it was very interesting to me looking at the perspective of how beautiful and gracious and caring and giving, and then the polar opposite of that could be. And I don't know if you guys have ever looked into archonic deception and how energy can be seeded and fueled through people, through what we're giving our energy away from. And I don't know why this is just coming up for me today, but part of our karma and like really releasing our karma from our lives is understanding more about our sovereignty and really standing in our power as we're doing that. So releasing that childhood trauma and coming into that will affect every relationship in our life. So like addictions say, we're giving our power away to that addiction. And so something could take us over, and it's not really who we are. It's an outside source that's affecting us. So I think with healthy relationships, understanding what we're giving our power away to, whether that's social media or something else that's just a dopamine effect. I was noticing that today. I went in the woods and I went into a tree. And I was like, ooh, I'd love to share like a meditation with people. But then I just noticed as I was in this meditation, my mind immediately went to, I want to share this with other people. But this was a moment in my life where I needed this for myself and this time for myself. So just noticing where our mind goes is so playful in relationships with ourselves and then with other people as well. So healthy relationships and the wisdom of healthy relationships is, yeah, truly taking ownership of everything in our life and feeling into that. It is so wild though, what you're calling in when you go out into the world and you meet people and you love everyone, but you can't fully trust everyone right away. You know, you build a relationship slowly over time, and that's how a relationship blossoms, is when you're truly present with those people, but realizing maybe that's not a person that I want to call into my tribe right now. Maybe that's where I was when I was in that addiction mode. And, you know, if I do that, I'm just going to be repeating karma again. So yeah, that's my journey right now. That's what's on my heart right now in terms of healthy relationships. And I'd love to hear any reflections or things that popped up from that from anyone.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Lauren. Kristen, go ahead. Your hand's up. We'll pass it to you and I'll share something after that.
Okay. Yeah, it's so interesting about the subconscious and the past stuff that Iain and Lauren spoke about, like the stuff that we do with our family really impacts like what we witness, and then we play it out again and again and again. And even in healthier relationships, we still have, if our parents have healthier relationships, we still can play out the covert, not so conscious things that they do. And yeah, I just wanted to share something that has come up for me recently around this, because I do a program called The Spiral, which is kind of NLP related, and also has a bunch of subconscious mapping tools that have just been so priceless to me. But I was doing some mapping on myself about relationships and found that I had been really struggling with why I could see these different themes in my past relationships and being like, how can I break that cycle that I can see is popping up? I can't see what it is. And then the tools kind of gave me the insight that basically in those really early formative years, like of, you know, babyhood and whatnot, you're basically sponging from your family's beliefs. You basically indiscriminately absorb what is happening with them and how they're feeling. And I was able to map that my mum, and I know it from now because she's still like it, has had this belief since I was a baby that my dad doesn't do anything. So it's like, at the time, it's like the man was the breadwinner and the woman was the stay-at-home mum. It was a different time. That was the normal thing that was going on. And so she did everything, but she kind of always complained that he did nothing, even though I didn't understand that there was this, what might have been the ecosystem of the times or whatever. But essentially, I grew up believing that the masculine doesn't provide anything, like you can't expect anything from them. And so in my early relationships, I was acting out a mother archetype in partnerships with men who couldn't bring anything to the table, but just needed a lot of care. And so even though I overcame that and I ended up in a really healthy relationship for 7.5 years, he was still a very kind of like not proactive character. He wasn't riddled with wounds that the empath wanted to fix or anything, but he wasn't kind of, he was able to passively support me, but not really lift and bring out he wasn't bringing that high vibe masculine to meet the high vibe feminine to really get expansive with it. And I'm really just, it was shocking to see that even though I've been on this conscious journey for ages and think a lot about emotions and relationships, that subconsciously I just didn't value the masculine. Like I valued them, I loved them. I love men, I also love women, but I didn't think that they could actually give me anything that I couldn't give myself. And so that really reduced my ability to attract collaboration in relationships, which is something I'm consciously addressing now. And I also just wanted to put out there because I just thought I might have a unique like signature on this situation because I'm polyamorous doing conscious non-monogamy and was in a successful relationship of that nature for that 7.5, like the 3 years of that 7.5 relationship. And even though we're not together now, I still deem all the relationships that transpired in there successful because that what Brendon said about relationships and healthy relationships are about being seen, feeling safe and feeling heard. And what gives us that safety is good communication. And even if it's not good communication, it's loyalty to communicating, even if it's not like 100% great, because if you can't talk about your problems, you can't get anywhere with them. And if you can't talk, then you can't have that dialogue and that ecosystem of trying to navigate your own individual fulfillment and the potential fulfillment of the shared parties that can be shared together. And that is a quality. Communication is just a really high priority for me. And it's really kind of prolific in the ethical non-monogamy and polyamorous communities because you can't have multiple relationships without good communications because as you can imagine, stuff like the natural kind of jealousy triggers that might arise or like negotiating shared time and stuff like that, everything needs to be clear for it to work, for there to be an ecosystem amongst people. And so I find it communication is the most attractive thing to me, and that community is kind of like so has a real loyalty to that. And I know that a lot of people in the kind of classic relationship monogamy styles also have that too. But in my past, I was attracting people that didn't have a loyalty to communication, just prefer to cross their fingers and hope that nothing happened that would need addressing. And then meanwhile, fulfillment was just like a distant dream because when problems came up, it was just maintaining some false level of harmony by not talking about things. But we need to express, and people, like, we are each like an individual library of bizarre past experiences that have accumulated in the now, and our behaviors and our beliefs and our feelings and what is fulfilling for us, that it's just insanity to hope that you can get by without communicating, because we are so diverse individually. We are just, it's a miracle that we connect at all sometimes based on the fact that, your parents did that and my parents did this, and then we weave our way here and all the stuff that goes on with our peers in high school and all that. And then we just like have beliefs that come from somewhere, and then to expect that they're just the same and they're going to be homogeneously harmonious without any work is just, something that I was naive about that in my early adulthood, to just be like, oh, it's just, maybe it's not right if it just doesn't work, was like a thing. But then also like, oh, maybe I just have to tolerate the fact that this isn't functional and the fact that we can't talk. And yeah, it was a real journey to empowerment, to be like, it's actually essential to communicate. And communication is like the ultimate sign of love for me, because it's like, that's where our energies cross over. Otherwise, we are just like coexisting on some independent plane. But that moment where we can create that chemistry and development together is of the highest value. So, yeah.
Thank you, Kristen. Beautifully said. For anybody who wants to jump in next, again, just go ahead and raise your hand, and we'll pass it to you as soon as anybody wants to. I'll just share a couple things, and yeah, absolutely. Like the communication is undeniably like so important. And again, it's not even just like the verbal communication. It's how we communicate with our actions. It's how we communicate with our with our energies, with our emotions, with our gifts. The love languages that we talk about. I know that for me and Lacey, like we're fortunate that we seem to be a natural good fit for each other, but that's not something that just happened overnight. It happened through like a lot of having to get better at communicating, understandably, like, and I'm not going to get into all the details here, but before Lacey and I kind of like got to the point where we're just like, yes, this is the relationship that we want, there was a lot of like up and down and left and right and hard things and navigating, and me screwing up, and both of us making a mess out of things, and it wasn't just us. It was like the fact that there was other stuff going on in our life, and we were trying to navigate and hold space for each other and everything like that. But even for ourselves, and this is where we can kind of even start talking a little bit, and if anybody has any insight on this, kind of on this I don't just want to use the term like divine masculine, divine feminine. I mean, I guess we could, but it's almost like kind of like this higher perspective of love, where there's like these different relationships, like call it like a soul union or something like that. But it was interesting because like, and this is me speaking from my own experience, that like with Lacey, this is like I'm like, should I say that? No, I shouldn't say that. But there were times that within my journey, I had to make difficult decisions, but those decisions were ultimately leading me towards knowing I'm like, man, like I'm pretty like intuitively, I felt in my heart, I'm like, this girl is my soulmate. And it wasn't just like I hoped she was my soulmate. Like I intuitively, I just knew it. And even in the midst of that, I'm like, man, like I'm making some like kind of like weird, shady choices here. And there was stuff that I was doing, which looking back in the past, I've grown a lot from it and everything like that. But also in those moments, it was just kind of like, it's just like, I knew I had to let go of something else in order to be able to move into something new, even though I didn't fully know what that new thing was. But intuitively, there was just something within my heart that was calling me towards this. And even within mine and Lacey's relationship, again, without getting fully into the personal details, like there were times where, and it's interesting, she'll reflect this back on me. And she would say to me, she was like, Brendon, you would always remind me to like that, like, I forget how she would word it, but more or less, it was basically me communicating that it was like trust. Like, trust Lacey, like this is going to work out. I know things are messy right now. I know it doesn't look like it's like the entire world is against us. That's very interesting when you have these relationships where it's like, it seems like everyone else is like trying to like say like, oh, it's kind of like this star-crossed lovers thing where everyone else is like, no, that can't happen. That can't happen. It's like almost like a Romeo and Juliet thing. But then even still for us, it's like everybody else is trying to keep us apart, but actually it brought us together even stronger. And then even in those moments, I was just kind of reminding her, I'm like, I don't like, man, like intuitively in my heart, I'm like, this is like, I can see it. I can see our future. Keep moving forward. And with that gave me and also her this like deep strength to be able to navigate those challenging circumstances. And then lo and behold, flash forward, years later, dude, like seriously, it's so trippy because like back in the day, we would used to like joke about having a child, right? And now here we are, and it's like barely like 2 months away, and like I'm just like, how did I get here, man? But the only way that thank you. The only way that I got here was by doing nothing less than just, being true to my heart. And this, I'll just say this, and we're kind of, I guess this relates to the topic, but I'll just say this because I think some people need to hear this. you know, we talk about this axiom, like follow your heart, follow your heart, follow your heart, follow your heart. That's great. That's what we want to do, because following your heart is kind of following the intuition of your soul path, like the connection between yourself and this future that's guiding you. However, there's a caveat to that. Your following your heart won't always lead you to happiness. It will lead you on a journey that will take you into places of deep darkness. But then as a result of that, it will also bring you out of it as well. And that was like part of the experience that you know, I there was like many times it was like, again, up and down, and I only say this because I'm sure a lot of us kind of like reflect it in similar ways. But yeah, follow your heart, but then at the same time, keep that strength within your heart to know that even through those hard times, if you continue to hold that light within your heart, it can help kind of like move you towards it. However, at the same time, you know, I think it's also important that with any relationship, I'm kind of only speaking for my own relationship with Lacey. I think, you know, it's an important thing that with any relationship, this is a good metaphor. Hold a relationship like a flower in your palm. Hold it. Just hold it. Don't hold on to it, because if you hold on to that flower, you will crush it and you will destroy it unintentionally. But yes, you will. Hold it like a flower. And then if the wind blows and the flower leaves your palm, let it go. You know, let the flower move on and everything like that. It was never your flower. You were merely holding it. And as you were holding it, you admire it and you honor it and you love it for the moment that it is there. And maybe it will stay there for a few months. Maybe it will stay there for a few decades. You don't really know. But I can say that from my own experience, part of what in the past would actually almost created like the breakups within my experience was me trying to hold on to the flower. And that's actually what destroyed the relationships. So even in my past, you know, like here I had this idea with Lacey where it was like, I was like, hold on to this, like hold on to the flower, just hold it in your hand. Like this is going to work. Trust me. It might take years, but this is going to work. But then in the past, I kind of had this idea where there's like previous relationships where I'm like, I think I'm going to marry this girl. And then I would like bring this energy into the relationship and there's like, slow the fuck down. And then I'm just like, oh shit, sorry. And then like that would actually create like the rift. And I'm just like, oh, okay. Lesson learned. Like, me, a Cancerian, pouring my whole heart into it, but don't pour your heart fully into it, because sometimes a little bit too much love is actually a bad thing. Sometimes it's a dynamic, it's a balance. A couple things I just want to say, and again, who wants to go next? Just go ahead and put your hand up. Okay. I'll pass it over to Iain. Iain actually said this earlier, and I think this is something important. You know, when we look at the dynamics of relationships, you know, again, and Kristen was talking about this too, like we love based on the examples of love that we have seen. And it's so trippy because when you look at society, like the reason why, fortunately right here, for many of us here, again, we're cultivating consciousness. We're very self-aware. Unfortunately, yet it is what it is, the majority of the population is still quite unconscious. And if you look at that, you know, like why? It's like, because as Iain was saying, it's like they are literally living out programs. And these programs have been programmed into them by society, by things they see on TV, things they read in the news, things they see on social media. And they have this distorted view of what they think a relationship is. And then as a result, they act it out, bro culture and everything like that. I'm like, man, like what the heck is with these people? They go around and they just sleep with anyone and then they break up and it's just like drama. I'm just like, good God, it's like Jersey Shore and you're living it all day long. And like, that's exhausting. But again, you know, it's this idea, can't imagine, man. But again, it's this idea where, you know, for us, it's important for us to be able to become conscious of the programs that we may subconsciously be enacting, as well as the programs that our partners may be subconsciously enacting. And then when we become conscious of that, again, we can hold space for it. And I think that's the thing. If you have a partner that's kind of living out these programs that aren't necessarily healthy, don't try and change them. Like that doesn't work. You can't like force change upon them. But what you can do is you can hold up a sacred mirror and say like, look, this is what you're doing right now. And maybe you can shine a little bit of light to it. And then ultimately it might, you know, it'll be them who will walk the path. And it might take years, you know, it literally will take years and everything like that. Anyways, there's other stuff I was going to say, but I'll wait till later. Iain, let's pass over to you. Thank you guys so much for your comments in the YouTube chat. This has been wonderful. We'll go up until about 10 o'clock and then we'll get close to wrapping it up, but let's keep flowing from here. Go right ahead, Iain.
Yeah. And everybody that's watching, please drop in comments, tell us what you're thinking, ask us questions, because you're part of this conversation. So the more you participate, the more that you can speak to whatever's going on with you. What I'd really like to kind of just express is that flower metaphor. You know, I grew up in an era where it was, you were supposed to like meet your soulmate in high school and get a white picket fence and live happily ever after. And I've been married before. In my current relationship, when we had our baby, they bring out a form you got to fill out about the parents. And one of the questions is like, what's your status? And I'm like looking for the checkbox that says sacred union, right? That's the one I'm looking for, but it's not there, right? We have this agreement that we made that I want to choose you every day. This is about choosing you every day. You can choose me every day. So if the wind comes and blows, like I'm so happy for the time that I've had with you. And that's the way that we put that flower in the palm of our hands in a practical nature, is we look at each other every single morning. If we're still both in bed, the baby's kind of changed a little bit of the dynamic there in the mornings, but we look at each other every morning, or at some point in the morning, we look at each other and like, I choose you today. I choose you today. I consciously am choosing you today. And when I consciously choose you, then nothing's going to get between us. The other practical thing that I wanted to just kind of bring out there and put out to the eaters that I don't ever hear anybody really talk about is this thing that I learned about called full duplex conversation. And this is what's used in the military. So if the commander's giving an order out to somebody, the person that's listening to the order actually will say the order back. And then they have a language to confirm that that's accurate what they said, or they can revise it. So that's how it's used in the military, to make sure people don't shoot the wrong people. That kind of stuff, like little things like that. In a relationship, it's partially that. So the first thing that happens is when I hear something that doesn't make sense to me, like, man, this creating disturbance in the field. This is somebody wants to fight right now. I'll say something more like, I think I heard Emily say, and I'll repeat back verbatim if I can. This does so many things. One of the things that Brendon brought up earlier is being seen or being heard is so important, and being witnessed. Like this whole game of separation that we're playing right now as different eyes, even though we're all one eye, is a game of hide and go seek. And the coolest thing is actually to be able to be witnessed, because that's why we've been incarnated in these bodies, for one of those reasons, to actually be able to have this witness onlooker relationship. So by saying back what I think I heard, well, then we have this very clear showing that I am listening, clear example that I am witnessing. And what often will happen is if it's something that's a disturbance in the force, then that person that's actually listening to me say back what they said, even sometimes I'll even pretend to be Emily, or Emily will pretend to be me. We'll even do voices and motions and try to be like completely act out the scene from the way that we just saw it. So it becomes like gamified in this way. And what will happen is the other person that's now listening will have this cool opportunity to hear themselves from another's perspective and actually be able to revise what they had to say. So what I used to do in the past, and I'll just point this out, because I always listened, I always witnessed, and I used this in a way, but I used it differently. I used this unconsciously. I had a program running in me that was straight up, everything they say right now is building evidence for what I believe is true and why they are fucking wrong. That was ingrained in my mind. I was like the best litigator. Like I wanted to win the fight. I didn't want to resolve the issue. So that's what I used to do. So I'm just saying that so people can become aware of it and they don't go down that path. Now, when I started letting the person revise what they actually meant to say, like, oh my God, I said that. Sometimes they're like, after practicing, they're usually like, oh my God, I can't believe I just said that. I need to change it. That's not at all what I meant. That's not what I meant. Let me restate that. Let me start over. Blah, 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 and then they start over. And this gives them actually an opportunity to cleanse themselves when they're talking and actually be able to get more authentic to what they really meant to say. So I would say it's like akin to whenever you make a water well. If you've ever seen a water or an oil well being created, the first bit of water that comes out is like mud. You're not drinking that water. That's not good water. It's great that there's water there. There's great that there's a flow of energy. There's a flow of that water, but that's not the stuff to drink. What we really want to do is let that clear itself out. And that happens by people talking. By people talking it through and then hearing themselves back and then being able to revise what they said to get really clear on what they meant so they can speak truly from their heart, because this mind has so many programs running and it's bifurcated. Like we have a left hemisphere, right hemisphere. I shouldn't. It's paralyzing. Oh my God, I can't do these thoughts. I need to go meditate. I got to run next room, blah, 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 whatever it is. But if they can actually talk and just get out whatever those voices are, then all of a sudden that mind will still and it will become this thing that it was actually created for, which is reflection, not decision making. The mind can't even choose. It can only cut things off, which is decision is to cut things off. So once that mind, once that voice and all those words get through, and if I'm willing to listen through that whole entire thing for them to get what they're saying very clearly, then all of a sudden the heart starts to speak. And then the connection comes in. And then we can repeat back what we thought the other person said, and then the harmony gets quickly restored. So I wanted to drop that in there because it was never taught to me until I was like 42 years old. So maybe 40 years old. And it would have solved like 90% of my issues. And this can be done with your boss, right? This is also mirroring. If you know negotiation techniques and stuff like that, this is actually also mirroring, but the full duplex creates that space for anybody to clear out, move on, get harmonized, and grow together. So I just want to bring those two in there because it just totally changed the way I look at everything.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much, Iain. Beautiful insight. What was I saying there? Insight and wisdom. Beautiful insight and wisdom there. Kristen, we'll pass it over to you. One thing I'll just drop in real quick because I was thinking about this earlier and I forgot, and it actually relates to what Iain was saying here. A quick little piece of advice that I've kept with me is that when a conflict arises in a relationship, be it romantic, platonic, friendship, family, whatever the case may be, I kind of have like a basic rule that I basically stick with, where I make sure to keep myself accountable. When there's a conflict, instead of it being you versus the other person, instead change the story where it's you and the other person versus the situation. So instead of saying like, oh, this is your fault, this is my fault, take accountability and everything like that, but instead it's just like, okay, we're a team here. There's some sort of conflict, there's some sort of challenge that's arising. What can we do proactively to be able to help assess the situation and work towards a productive conclusion and a productive resolution as well? So again, instead of being like, just remember, it's not you versus the other person, it's you and the person versus the situation. Slight little change there, but I know for me that's definitely always brought up a lot of productive motion going forward. Ekua, you have your hand up. Did somebody else have their hand up a second ago as well? I wasn't sure. Kristen as well. Ekua, we'll pass over to Kristen. Is that okay? We'll pass over to Ekua and then we'll pass over to Kristen. Ekua, go right ahead. Yeah.
So you can go first.
Yep.
You. I really love what you and Iain is saying. That's something that I practice in my current relationship. And it is about tackling the situation instead of trying to find who's right, who's wrong. And sometimes it could be just out of ego because we always want to feel like, we can use this opportunity to prove I'm the better person in a relationship or whatever. So we talked about first feeling safe, feeling seen, feeling heard. And a lot of times that can show up how we show up in having these necessary conversations, disagreements, and things like that. So just creating that safe space, not passing judgment. And Lauren and even Kristen was saying how like childhood stuff can show up, and we have to be honest with ourselves. I know with my relationship, it may be things that come up that's triggering. And Brendon, you brought this up about, how did you say it? Far as being empowering or disempowering, like, is this an opportunity for me to, which one I'm going to choose? And so with me, if I see that, okay, something triggered me, the situation that just happened is really not the source. It's just a reminder that this is something that I'm still dealing with. And it gives me an opportunity to open up myself a little more to my partner so they know that this is something that I'm dealing with. And it gives them the opportunity to remind me that they're here, that they provided this safe space to allow me to continue to grow. And even when we have discussions and disagreements and things like that, if it gets to the point where a solution is not in the near future of that conversation, it's okay to allow space where you can tap on. It's like, you know what, I heard what you said. I felt heard as well. I feel at this time we're not able to come to a common ground or a resolution. That's okay. Let's, come back to this another time. So just, being forgiven in that. And then also if someone does something that you don't really care for, and if you address it, allow them that time to make some changes. In my relationship, my partner initiated the check-in. So every 3 months we do the check-in. And it's crazy because I will always think, oh, the check-in means like I have to express to him what are things that I don't care for, something that's negative. And he reminds me that this don't always have to be something negative. It can be a moment of acknowledging, a moment of sharing appreciation and gratitude and things like that, or even expressing new things that, we want to bring into the relationship, or opportunities for us to share about ourselves in ways that we haven't before. So I really appreciate that. And it's good to, even with friendships or any other relationships, having that space to even grow in different ways.
Thank you. Thank you, Ekua. Kristen, can I just add in one thing? Is that okay? Just real quick. Okay. So kind of going with what Ekua was saying, because it was just sparking some reminders in me. Yeah. So, like we have this idea that's just like, oh, a healthy relationship helps us heal. And I think that's part of it. And I think that's a part of the bigger journey as well. I think indicators of a healthy relationship are relationships that help liberate each other, liberate us from our own paradigms, our own preconceived notions of who we are. And so, like a healthy relationship is a relationship where two parties or more parties, again, we could be talking about the relationship of a hockey team, of a military platoon, whatever the case may be. But a healthy relationship is when, we got lots of babies on here now. A healthy relationship is a relationship where the parties are working together towards a common vision. And so that's where, again, like I love being able to consciously bring that intention into relationship, where with myself and with Lacey and even with you guys here, it's this energy of helping liberate each other, and then also celebrating the process of that liberation, evolving each other into more of our sovereignty. And I can say that, like not just through mine and Lacey's relationship, but I can definitely say from that experience, like, and Lacey will say this to me as well, like she, it very much being like a Sagittarius and everything like that. Like it was always this idea that I would tell her this. It's just like, I want, like I'm here to help you spread your wings. Like I'm not going to do it for you, but I'll hold space for it. And literally like the person that she was, like when I was, like earlier on and when we weren't even dating at that point, it was a completely different dynamic relationship that I'm not going to get into, but needless to say, she was a very much like kind of like reserved version of herself. And I always saw, and this is a key thing of a healthy relationship, is to not just see the person as they are, but to see the potential that resides inside of them, to see not just with the eyes, but to see with your heart and be like, whoa, like there's a really creative, powerful, exciting, funny, inspirational person inside of you. Let's help bring that out. And, so it's kind of like this idea of like watering each other, filling each other's cup. And then lo and behold, literally just through me, just kind of being a presence in Lacey's life, it supported her and motivated her. And now she is just like this much more liberated person, of a complete, and again, it's not like like she changed. It's just like she's become more of who she always was, yet maybe in different circumstances she wasn't as liberated to be able to do that. So so again, sometimes the liberation can be a process of freeing ourselves from an external environment, but it's also the internal process as well. And Dion in the chat, I just want to give a shout out to Dion, the journey within, and guys, be sure to follow Dion on YouTube. He's a good buddy of mine. But with Dion just talking about holding space, and I'll just mention this real quick and pass over to Kristen. Yeah, like I talk about this, I'm like, holding space is literally a superpower. Like if you can get good at holding space, like that can resolve like any challenge in any circumstance, relatively speaking. You know, like holding space literally just in the idea of being able to invite people to share, invite people to speak, asking questions, not just trying to tell them something, but just holding space for them, or again, kind of like giving them the opportunity to be able to reflect, giving them the opportunity to share. Yeah, the power to be very present with someone is the virtues of a healthy relationship, you know, which is why I think a lot of relationships, they fail, because, you know, like our presence is divided. Our presence is on our phones. Our presence is, you know, on our other social dynamics or things that aren't really even worth our attention. So when you're in a relationship, like, and you know, like create those moments of intimacy, not just like sexually, like intentionally create moments of intimacy, eye gaze, really be present with someone, connect with your breath, connect on those deeper levels, connect through conversation, connect through the subtleties, in a lot of ways. Because I think, again, you know, like the what evolves into like a beautiful, healthy relationship, it's actually like it's very like gentle, subtle things, that kind of just naturally create this like ecosystem that we talk about that naturally builds over time. But yeah, that again, that idea of holding space is literally a superpower. So again, thank you guys for holding space for each other here tonight. Kristen, we'll pass it over to you. And again, anybody else who wants to jump in, we'll just keep passing talking. So we'll pass over to Lauren next. Go right ahead, Kristen.
Yeah, I think holding space is super important. And I think that was a huge medicine I got from my last long-term relationship. He was very good at that. And yeah, it plays into that metaphor you said with the flower. It's like you're not closing that space, it's being held. Yeah, so I want to touch on stuff that you said about yeah, people in their unconscious state and stuff that Iain said about those moments of just like reflecting back to people so they have the opportunity to become more conscious. Like, so when you say what they said and they're like, oh wait, that wasn't as conscious as I wanted, and they modify what they're saying, it's like, even as conscious as we all are on this path and everything, there's always going to be moments of like unconscious or subconscious stuff that's slipping through the cracks. So it's really a beautiful thing to be a mirror for that stuff. So whether it's like the micro unconscious moments that Iain's going through, or like when Brendon was talking about people having like their unconscious kind of mound of stuff that they don't really know that they're acting out. I just wanted to say that, yeah, you can't really do anything about other people's unconscious material except for like be a model example of consciousness to them. And that is like being the mirror. It's just like holding strong in your consciousness, not kind of buying into also being unconscious because they're being unconscious, and that kind of like ping pong that can happen. But in those dynamics I was in, where I was being a rescuer in the past, it's like a lot of the stuff that I was trying to rescue those people from was their unconscious material. But I wasn't kind of addressing the fact that I had my own unconscious material where I had self-worth stuff that wasn't allowing me to feel like strong and conscious without trying to fix something. And so it was like being, if you're putting your hands like in the pie of the other person more than you're like aware of the compulsion for doing that, it's like you are in that situation. Like is attracting like. You might feel like you're the savior in the situation, but part of that savior is possibly coming from its own unconscious stuff that you're not facing, and part of you wants someone to reach into yours to lift you or whatever. But one of the main things that kind of is like been like what Brendon said about that I want to marry this person moment, like that is one of, I feel like one of the most prolific kind of unconscious like waves that goes through people in relationships, because we've lived with these like classic models of relationships to find the person, to have the kids, to get the house, and all those things that is just like so old school now, but we still carry them. And yeah, that's something that's really I became aware of quite early. So I'm 31 now, but I was 22 at the time that I was with this relationship that I keep referring to. And he and I were together for 2 years, and we got engaged, and we were talking about having kids. And when we ended up having a tipping point where I ended the relationship, I just thought, holy moly, I just nearly just brought a child into something so unhealthy. And like, there was no doubt in my mind we would have gotten divorced. That I would have probably been the primary care person for that child, and all of my liberation would have been put way on the back burner because I hadn't learnt even who I was really yet. And I was playing out that pattern of like, I've just got to find, this is the person, and now we do the thing. And I was shocked, and I was also just had like this care for the child that would have been. Like, I can't believe I almost did that to a being, because I have some internalized subconscious desire to hurry up and have a baby when I was only 22. And I'm 31 now, and I'm so open in that way because I had to really sit and go, where is that compulsion? Do I actually want that? Is it actually helpful? Like, what is that child going to be? And like, I want to be in a relationship where it's like the child is a natural expansion of that love. Like, there's that capacity for love grows in that collaboration. And it's like, we can bring something more into this rather than being like, oh my God, it's that thing. Like, we better hurry up and live out the timeline that our parents lived out, like, because he was nearly 30. And so he kind of was living that out too. Like, he was like ready to get married, and he was dealt with his own stuff when we split up, to be like, wow, I'm nearly 30 and I don't have all those things. And yeah, I think it's really a huge responsibility on everyone individually to really meet what background automated expectations they're having in relationships, to ensure that they're just conscious of them. Like, just being like, is this playing out now? And not to constantly second guess yourself. But when we're in the heart's truth, it's expansive. It's not limiting. It's not like I'm running out of time. It's not like, it doesn't have that rigidity that the heart's truth naturally has. And so if we start to feel that rigidness and that kind of maybe mild nervous system response when we're thinking about getting something done, is it like, it's probably more fear-based than love-based, and we really need to keep coming back into that genuine love. And yeah, there was also what Ekua said about like when her partner triggers her sometimes, and then it opens her into thinking about how, like, oh, there's still this stuff here I need to deal with. But I just think that triggers are so valuable in relationships, especially when you've got that safety of good communication already. And essentially those triggers and stuff are there to show us that maybe there's like an expectation that we had that wasn't verbalized. And when that gets agitated and we don't get to have that expectation met, that expectation might be linked to an emotion or a belief that's not actually harmonious with the heart's truth. And so we get to go into that investigation mode when we're triggered, rather than just being like, God, I hope they don't trigger me. Because it's always just such a beautiful thing to really meet your expectations with conscious awareness and see if they're actually harmonious to your core values, or is it just like a preference that is coming out of fear that has been learned from some other situation or wound. And yeah, I think I love relationships for that accelerated growth path that they provide, because you have to meet that stuff like when you're in intimate connection with people.
Beautifully said, Kristen. Yeah, there's kind of a quote that I heard once. It's like there's two things in life that will help you grow really, really fast. It's like, one, it's like being an entrepreneur, and two, relationships. Like relationships, like they are just like this natural accelerator. I'll just say one thing here real quick, and I'll pass it over to Lauren. And again, this was wisdom that was given to me by an older man way back in my day. And he told me this even before I started getting into my earlier relationships. And I didn't even have my first girlfriend until I think I was like 24, give or take. For some reason, I don't know, whatever. But anyways, it was what it was. But he said every relationship prepares us for the next one. And so like that for me kind of, even though I didn't fully understand it, as I got older, I eventually understood it more. Where again, you know, for what I think is a healthy relationship doesn't have to be the soulmate that you're going to live the rest of your life with. You know, like a healthy relationship is a relationship. This is an example of a healthy relationship where two parties can arrive at the same time. And this would be how I would tell the story, where basically it kind of like what Iain was saying. It's like you're choosing each other. And in that moment, you're choosing, this is a metaphor that I use, where it's like you're choosing to dance together for as long as the music lasts. And when the song ends, you say, thank you for this wonderful dance. And you go on your way. And you wish them well, and they go to dance with someone else, and you go to dance with someone else. And both of you are better dancers as a result of it. But I think, again, you know, to try and like put this pressure and this expectation of trying to make a relationship into something prevents it from being what it needs to be sometimes. So again, you know, to just kind of like find this balance, kind of what we were talking about earlier, towards like trying to, you know, like you want to be able to kind of find this middle ground, but not being too passive in a relationship, but not being too aggressive in a relationship, and then being present enough to be able to observe what the relationship is and what it needs to be for you. And even going back to what Ekua was saying, I'll pass it over to Lauren. You know, it's like you want to be triggered in a relationship. Why the hell are you in a relationship if you're not planning on being triggered? Like any good relationship, especially if you're young and you've got a lot of shift to unpack, like expect to be triggered like at least like 4 or 5 times a week on a good week. And honor that, you know, like your triggers are your teachers is something we can say. But honestly, the more conscious you are with those triggers, you can move through them. And then if you're just like, man, like let's trigger each other 4 or 5 times a week, not in a malicious way, but just in kind of like a curious way, right? And then by the time you get into the relationship in its next couple of years, and suddenly it's like you're getting triggered maybe like, you know, once or twice a month. And as a result of that, it's because you're spending more time just really being present with each other. The last thing I'll just say here real quick, I think a good dynamic to a healthy relationship is our ability to be, and using the word dynamic twice, but to be dynamic in the way that we show up. So, you know, if you think about a relationship with a friend, or even especially a relationship with a child, as well as a relationship with a partner. And again, you know, for some of you guys kind of know this, like I've been a stepdad for like the past like year now. I don't talk about it all the time. But with this, it's given me this opportunity to be able to, you know, like understand like how like, especially with kids and everything, like you love them, but then there are certain times where it's like you're speaking to them in a nice, like calm way, but then sometimes you're speaking to them in an assertive way. And so it's kind of like this ability to be able to use a little bit of that like shift in tone when you need to, but still do it from a place in love, but then have the conscious awareness to consciously bring it back to that calm space. It's when you get stuck in that assertive mode unconsciously, that's when it kind of creates this like unhealthy pattern. And it's just like, oh man, like whoa, like easy there. You're projecting onto me. There's something unresolved. Like clearly someone yelled at you too much when you were young, and now you're just repeating the process or something like that. So, you know, like in any relationship, again, like romantic and everything like that, you know, it's this dance of kind of like dancing fast, dancing slow, talking to them in a silly way, talking to them in a funny way, being serious when you need to, being quiet when you need to, all of these things. So again, I think the more that we become conscious of who we are, the more we get to kind of like experience the dynamics of who we are. And then we can bring the gifts of those different dynamics into the relationships and kind of consciously play around with them as we go. So Lauren, I'll pass it over to you. We'll keep an eye on the time. We'll probably go a little bit past 10. And the one thing we haven't talked about so much here tonight, and I think it's good that we haven't talked about it, is like the whole concepts of like twin flames and soulmates. Because I know, we're a spiritual community and we got to talk about twin flames. And everybody's asking, do you know about twin flames and karmic relationships? I mean, we can. But I think the fact that we haven't talked about it just goes to the fact that, you know, there's a much more grounded kind of like, you know, reality to this discussion that doesn't necessarily involve those terms. But we can absolutely talk about it, because I think it can provide some context to those of you who want to look at it through that lens. Lauren, over to you. Whenever you're ready, go right ahead.
Wow, I loved everything everyone said. I have so many just notes of references, and I loved that reflection. It's actually a part of hypnotherapy where you say, oh, what I heard you say, and you repeat it back in mirror, and it's really interesting. But what do I want to talk about? I had so many things pop up when you all were talking. And so soulmates and twin flames, I mean, let's go there. Why not? A little bit of my history is I think a lot of us have sexual trauma, and a lot of us are very disempowered with our sensuality and our sexuality, and especially as women. And if you were raised Catholic, it was very like you want to be in that purity culture, or if not, you're that like Mary Magdalene, or just promiscuous. So I never actually felt safe in relationships, and we're talking about that, like really feeling safe and seen and heard. And so with the first relationship I brought in, it was super toxic, and they cheated and they were very abusive, and it mirrored that childhood trauma that we were talking about. And then I met one of my soulmates who finally made me feel safe in a relationship. And he truly was like the deepest soulmate. And we were together for 8 years. We had a house together. But then the awakening hit in 2020. And this was a big wave for twin flame activations, especially if you're around 31. And I know, Kristen, you were too. And so that ended up happening where I was activated by someone that I believe is my twin flame. And this put me in this like this state of indecision of like, I'm so in love with Kenny, but at the same time, it feels like there's a depth, there's a vibration that's not matching anymore, because I'm on this inner healing, inner work, breath work, meditation journey, and they just were not at all. And interested, was open-minded. We had so many conscious conversations, but there was a depth that I needed, and it just wasn't there anymore. And we actually became polyamorous as well. And so I dated a woman who was on that path, and it was so wild because her and Kenny were like the same person, but she was like the spiritual tantric version of him. And it was a mere reflection of what was happening. So I recognized this, and I realized my own toxic behaviors and manipulation in that whole scenario where I wasn't following my heart. And it wasn't for the twin flame at all. The twin flame was this whole other aspect that just woke something up within me. Basically like a Kundalini awakening of my whole entire life, and how I was being in situations like the people pleasing and the needing to be something you're not, or like fake facade of a world that we were talking about, where we're just subconsciously living in hypnosis, and taking in everything that's around us. That's our TV we're watching, whatever we're listening to, the job we have, the people that surround us is hypnosis. It's all hypnosis, and how we speak. But so the twin flame activation is a very, very interesting, wild ride. And because I also do hypnotherapy and past life regression, there was so many synchronicities of the fact that I just wasn't comfortable in this relationship anymore. And it was probably one of the hardest decisions of my life to leave that relationship, because it was the safest that I ever felt. But I'm happy to be who I am on this journey. And it's so true. It's like those people are there, and you hold that flower, and maybe someone else is holding the flower too hard, and that makes you even go away from the other person holding the flower too much. But you learn a lot. You learn so much in relationships. And I think the twin flame journey is one to learn about yourself. And it's not one to be like, oh, I need this other half. You're whole exactly as you are. You're complete just as you are. And so learning more about yourself and the gifts that you have and your magic that you bring in, and understanding who you are and who you want to be. And people that surround us help us rise together, or they can help us, maybe stay a little stagnant. And there's nothing wrong with that. We can stay in that. We can be in that. We can love in that. We can exist in that. But there's this pull to rise higher and ascend the planet's vibration. And I firmly believe that twin flames, they activate in the grid something that will help the planet to vibrate higher, and more people to vibrate higher at the same resonance of the fifth dimension activation that's happening now. And since I fucking did that, I'm like a catalyst for twin flames, man. I've seen so many soulmate contracts and relationships, and people come to me in their dreams and they're telling me that they're not happy in this relationship anymore. And I'm like, I can't believe, I don't know. It's only happened a couple times, but enough times for me to be like, oh God. Since I've done that now, it's interesting. And I do believe that we have many soulmates. We have so many soulmates that fulfill us, and our friends could be our soulmates too, and our all of our partners could be soulmates. But the twin flame is one that I would love to hear other people's perspectives on as well. But it is a wild journey to be on, and to just know yourself more.
Absolutely. Indeed. Quite the ride. Kristen, I'll pass it to you for 1 second. I'm going to give just like a very short definition of my understanding of twin flame, just to be able to create some context here. And you guys may have your own, but this is kind of the issue with twin flames. It's just like, oh, like what is the one definition? It seems that, depending on which YouTuber or TikToker you're listening to, it seems like there's like a bunch of different definitions, but the one that's really resonated with me that I'm just like, oh, once I heard it, I'm like, oh, that makes sense. Like that actually helps me understand it. So basically I'll just simplify it real quick. Similar to what Lauren was saying, and you guys tell me if this makes sense for you, even in the YouTube comment. Simply put, a twin flame would be someone along your journey who is there to be able to help spark your growth, much like a flame would. It literally sparks it, hence the flame idea. A twin flame does not have to be a romantic partner. A twin flame sometimes can literally be your worst enemy. Like literally, like your antithesis, like your villain could be your twin flame. Like Batman's twin flame is the Joker sort of thing. Both of them kind of like spark each other, and they are who they are because the other exists sort of thing. So there's that. Can a twin flame be a soulmate? Sure, absolutely. Sometimes the twin flame relationships, they can kind of come for a brief period of time. You might meet someone and maybe it's just like a quick thing over the summer, and they really change your life and they help activate you and they help see something inside yourself you didn't see. And then you never see them again, sort of thing. It may be around for a while, and maybe just a short while. And then, so the other things would be like a soulmate relationship. Now, the key indicator of a soulmate relationship that I like to be able to perceive it through is focusing on the concept of harmonious. So a relationship that is harmonious, a relationship where, again, like the vibrations are a good match and things are working well, that would be a dynamics of a soulmate relationship. And again, as Lauren said, this could be a romantic partner, or it could be your friend. It can kind of be like the soul family thing. So like you could absolutely fall in love with a soulmate, and that could be your life partner, so to speak. Now there's one more term, and this is one that we don't always sort of talk about. And this is a little bit more kind of like ambiguous, esoteric, but very, very interesting in the concept of just maybe it's possible, maybe it's a thing. The idea of to use a better term, a less than better term, the concept of a twin soul. So a twin soul, this is a very interesting idea. This is the idea where if you were to think of things almost from like the way we perceive time right now is actually the reverse of what it actually is. Just sit with me here for a second. So basically what has happened within the dynamics of higher conscious experience is that like a soul over the dimensions and realities, it actually naturally fractals, it fragments. So you could have a soul that could almost kind of like fractal into multiple bodies, and then that could be like a soul family. And then you could also have an aspect of that specifically fractals into two different people. And then those two people come into union with each other, divine counterparts, similar to that. And then that person who may be your life partner, who you're meant to kind of create this sacred marriage with, this alchemical process with, would literally be like the union of two halves of a soul becoming one, yet each half is in itself its own unique aspect of a soul. But it's kind of like two branches of a tree kind of like meeting and then realizing that they were one branch to begin with. This is something that I know even for myself and Lacey, some people kind of talk about this. They're like, man, like you guys look similar. You guys seem similar. Like you guys like, are you guys cousins or something like that? And we kind of joke about that too. It's like, I don't know, man. It's like, what's going on here and stuff like that. Maybe like, honestly, like this is kind of silly, but weird. It's like in some past life, maybe Lacey and I were brother and sister. Who knows? Maybe things happen like that. Like, why not? Sure. Who knows? And maybe it could have been, maybe I could have been the father. She could have been the daughter, vice versa. Who knows? Right. It's just kind of a smorgasbord of multidimensional stuff. But anyways, so the twin flames, soulmates, and then twin souls. So putting those in the glossary. But again, different people have the different definition. Kristen, I'll pass it over to you. Let's keep things moving around here. Go right ahead, Kristen. I'll step back for a bit. And does that resonate with you, Kristen? Is that kind of within a ballpark that you've heard, or do you have your own concept? We'll just, I guess, talk about it, but anything else you want to talk about? Go for it.
I mean, I definitely feel like I've met, I don't know. It's yeah, I definitely vibe that like a lot of my close friends are soulmates. Like one of my closest girlfriends, I call her my soul wife, and I feel like we're married even though like she's been with a guy for 10 years and we're just like close as this, and he just like accepts us in our like affectionate, very immersive relationship that we have that's entirely platonic. And yeah, I thought, yeah, I mean, I haven't read heaps into twin flame stuff, and the definition I've read about twin flames was the twin soul one that you described, and also that they can be really triggering. Which is yeah, I feel like it's true for Lauren, like the fact that it's catalyzing something so huge. And I'm really intrigued about them in that way of like holding the flower. Like I'm intrigued about them. I'm aware of people's experiences, and also not trying to hold it too tightly, because I have, through doing my crystal stall at festivals, I talk with a lot of people coming in about crystals and whatnot, and I've had a couple of people coming in who haven't met their twin flame but are very fixated on the potential reality of this twin flame thing in a kind of anxious way that I just felt really like aware of. I was like, oh, they're not going to miss what's meant for them. Like they need to relax. Like, and it's not up to me to say what people need to do, but I just felt like I could see it having an effect on their nervous system, and I wished for them that it wasn't having that effect. But yeah, I wanted to talk on what Lauren said about that, that her being in this safe container, because similar to me with my long-term relationship, it was the ultimate container of safety, and that was the perfect place to also be doing polyamory from, because you can't really do polyamory in an unstable relationship. It's just going to be volatile and damaging for everyone. So, but I want to talk about you've probably all heard about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, like pyramid of like the different needs that people have. And basically the lower tier is all your kind of survival needs, and your base level of like instinctual sex and like safety and shelter and all those kind of base needs. And then the next one is like a bit more connection and stuff. And then there's another layer that's like hits on sex again and intimacy. And it's about because you can't really cultivate that really deeper intimacy unless you've hit your kind of like primal requirements for safety and food and security and things like that. And then you can start to expand into it. At the top of the pyramid is is self-actualization, and we constantly kind of fluctuate between the layers. But it's like, for what I imagine with Lauren, like and me in my relationship, we really needed life to kind of prove to us that it could be that safe, like it could be that secure, before we could advocate for the kind of depth that we wanted in other areas. So I'm the same. My partner wasn't kind of on the awakening journey. Like he still liked to talk about it, but he wasn't kind of like pushing his own edges in other ways. And I'd just been like on this, speed train of 2020 to 2021, that was like leaving me in like just this completely unfamiliar realm. Like I didn't really recognize myself compared to the person I was when I met him, and we still had a lot of like chemistry and similar interests in safety, and we were really motivated about the relationship. Polly actually helped us get really devoted about what we actually wanted, like from us being the primary partnership, and our relationship improved for like a decent amount. But because of that motivation and focus, we discovered that like the things that we were asking of one another was like actually trying to change one another at a fundamental level, and that I didn't want to do that. I actually loved him and he's freaking amazing, and he loved me and thought I was freaking amazing, but I was like, we're not each other's, like by staying together we impact on our level of fulfillment, and we've got this one life. And I think that people stay in relationships and forget about their relationship to fulfillment itself, and like what kind of depth they want and what kind of self-worth plays into it. If you don't have self-worth, you don't value your fulfillment. But if you get to a level of stability with it, you're like, what what is fulfilling? What's going to give me vitality? I've got this one life. I want to really like juice this situation. And is this relationship helping me to rise into that? Or are we actually holding each other back to some extent? Because me not being satisfied in some areas and him not being satisfied in some areas, and us trying to like negotiate it over and over again, and realizing that we could be doing this, like negotiating this for 2 years and nothing might change, was like, I'm actually, we just, in one of our chats, were like, maybe we should talk about the possibility of not staying together. And it was just like the most conscious breakup that I've ever had. And we're still like so close. So we went on a trip together last weekend to see some friends that we hadn't seen in ages. And it just felt like so mature and aware and like loving, even in the breakup. And I think that is possible when people are in their truth and they're being honest with their heart, and they're not seeing the breakup as like it says that you don't love that person. Because sometimes the most loving thing you can do is give them that space to be themselves genuinely, instead of trying to modify themselves over and over again. And I just want to say to everybody that is listening that we sometimes have those fear of loneliness, but if we never hold space for the depth that we want, then we will never know. Like, we'll never know. So if you're in a relationship avoiding loneliness, but actually putting in a cupboard all the things that you actually like crave, like for your life, that's aligned with your values and the sensation of your like intuitive potential and all that thing, you'll never know. And so we need to have that loyalty to self to hold that space and allow others to hold that space for themselves too. And I think that's just something really important on the kind of more conscious end of the spectrum. And I just wanted to touch on something on the kind of less conscious end of the spectrum before I finish, which is that if you are, that there's a difference between respecting the privacy of your own relationship and being secretive about what's going on in it. So if you find yourself not wanting to tell your friends about the problems that your relationship's having, I just encourage you to see that as like a internal red flag on yourself. Because what I stayed in this relationship that I was in for too long, because I wasn't talking to people about the problems. I was pretending that we didn't have problems. But the older we get and the more conscious we are, even if we're younger, is like every relationship has hiccups. Every relationship has conflict, and it doesn't matter. The conflict doesn't mean the relationship is bad. It's how you negotiate those situations. And essentially the kind of pathway to me being conscious of the trauma and pain of that relationship was when I started telling my close friends about it, and they were like, what? And they were like not okay with what I was saying to them. And that was able to show me that I wasn't in integrity with my values. I was being disrespected. But part of me was hiding that for ages because I knew the answer to the question. Like, I knew the responses that people would give me, and I was trying to preserve it. And it was unconscious on my part. But if you're conscious that you're being secretive about a relationship, that might be a sign that you need to start talking about it, just to get a feel, and to have mirrors around you show you whether that's like a relationship that needs some shift or needs some more awareness or needs some help, because everyone's relationship is everyone's relationship is can be turbulent, but if we can be open about that, then people grow in their relationships much more easily, because we admit that we're all flawed, and we can grow through that with openness and consciousness together as a little tribe. Like, talk to your friends about your relationships. So that's just something I wanted to add there.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Kristen. And we'll let you take care of some things, and we'll keep passing the talking stick around. Iain or Lauren, do you guys want to jump in? And we'll get close to wrapping it up in the next little bit. So we'll say maybe like 10, 15 more minutes on the clock. So go ahead, Iain, we'll pass it over to you. And wonderful job tonight, everyone. Beautiful discussion.
So I'm just so grateful to hear this conversation as being something normalizing, like this is what people are talking about. And people are looking at relationships from this way. I think a lot of the the issues that happen is people just start repeating those patterns that we discussed so much. And when we start actually talking about this stuff from this perspective and be able to open up people's eyes to these pieces, or even a lot of times it's not even opening up. Like people feel like, I feel it in my heart. I feel the resonance in my heart when everybody's talking here. And it makes such a difference in just the confirmation of what I already know to be true. And if I watch Family Guy or Modern Family, the messaging is significantly different. So I'm really glad to hear what's coming out from everybody tonight. One of the things that I heard mentioned was Kristen actually, I think, mentioned it, was I didn't even know if we had the same core values. And the truth of the matter is most people don't even know their core values. They don't have core values. And if they have core values, they don't have a hierarchy to them. They don't even have definitions to what those things are. So I would definitely encourage everybody to or anybody listening that feels called, like, just get them down on paper and get very clear what those definitions are. And that allows, like, it doesn't mean that it's there forever. They can be changed and expanded upon, but that allows one to sit with whoever they're with and say, here, these are the things, that values that I find important here. Do you, like, tell me, like, is this on the same page as you? Because I know for myself, I was a very much an optimistic person in a relationship. Like I can get along pretty much with anybody and kind of overlook whatever's going on for a period, right? And I can fool myself and see the best in other people. And I expect them to have this same kind of like self-worth that I have. And I like don't even know. I didn't even imagine somebody had low self-worth. Like, it doesn't even make sense to me why somebody would have insecurities about certain things. I don't experience fear the way a lot of people do, or I didn't even know what anxiety was until I was in my 20s, when I had a business partner that was having severe anxiety. And then I was dating someone that had severe anxiety. I'm like, what is this thing? And I caught it. It's contagious, by the way, apparently, if you've never had it or you didn't know what it was. But that's what happened to me. Like, I had no clue what it was. And it was just completely out of my awareness. Had I had core values laid out, like, and they had core values, that's a good, like, a place to create a foundation. Like, they're almost like fundamentals. Another thing that Brendon brought up was about, you want to be triggered. Like, even hearing that could be triggering for something. Why would I want to be triggered? So let me just tell you, because I didn't think I wanted to be triggered. I wanted to be, like, clear of all my shit and just be, like, in this vibe, flowing, feeling really good. And Emily and I got together and we had our triggering moments, and we built protocol, and we took an engineering. So actually, I took the engineering stance and said, hey, what if we do this piece? What if we do this piece? And the language and intentionality, and we actually ended up writing a book together called Heaven on Earth. And then we had to go through and create what our heaven on earth was. And we used specific language to draw that in. And we did a course and shared it with people. And eventually, after all of this stuff, everything was so perfect, so flowy, so sweet. And then all we had to say to each other was, I love you. I love you. I love you. I love you. And then occasionally she'd be like, what are you thinking? I'd be like, I love you. And it was like, what's going on here? What's going on? And we brought it up, like that in itself, that harmony was a trigger, right? A trigger doesn't mean it's bad. It's just like something that activates. What are we doing here? So we started getting even more like deeply authentic, rather than listening to the voice that was in my head. That's like some bullshit thought that came from the ether somewhere. I would say it. And I would say it consciously, acting. And I would act out the scene. And she would respond. And at first, like, it was like pushing on buttons. It was like, I would say it, she'd be like, ah, or she would say it to me, and I'd be like, ah. whatever, at first it was like that. Like we were like testing each other. Like, can I fuck you up? Can I get you off your rocker? Can we play this game together? Can we go deep here? How intimate can we be? How deep into me I see? To the point where it became this awesome game where now we're like acting all the world's a stage. So we still do it. It's still like, it's a practice. It's just part of our routine. And we play this game, and it reminds us like, this is what we did as kids. This is who we are. We played cowboys and Indians in my generation. I don't know if that's allowed anymore because it might upset somebody, but that's something we did. We went into roles and we played these roles, and we made the game up, and the game got done, and we put our bows and arrows and our guns away, and we were on to the next game. And that returned a lot of the play into our relationship. So once we started thinking about our triggers from that perspective, then it became the game to do it. And we still play the game. We get triggered less and less, and it becomes more expansive, and we get connected more deeply. And then Mercury will go in retrograde, and then all of a sudden we're both like saying the same word at the same time, and we're like, how the hell is that happening? Like Mercury's in retrograde. We're not, why are we both going at the same time? Or we're like, do you want coffee at the same exact time? And then by the end of this cycle, we're like, like fighting with each other, but like whatever I'm saying, she's not hearing, whatever she's saying, I'm not hearing correctly. And we're like literally going, I think I heard you say, do you want pancakes? And she's like, no, I was like, I'm going to go for a jog. And it was like totally different shit. But now, because we have the tools and we play the game, it becomes this entertaining, fun thing that we can do. And we have some friends that do it too. We can now mess with them as well. And it starts to expand out. And it's just, I think it was a really important thing that Brendon said was like, let the triggers come up. That doesn't mean your relationship's failing. If that's what's happening, like that, actually, that's a very healthy thing. And then if they're not coming up, like figure out how to. Brendon also said something about helping Lacey spread her wings, right? And that's interesting because doing the triggers helps one spread their wings. I think it was Lauren that mentioned something about like people pleasing at one point. And if she just continues to people please, and then people will just walk all over her. But if somebody's like, don't fucking say sorry to me one more time, like I'm over that word, like I don't want to hear it, then that's a triggering thing. And then she's like, what do you mean? I'm such a nice person. And I've seen this happen. Like, bringing these things to the surface is like the most beautiful thing that we can do. That's actually true love in my belief, is actually let's be revealing and actually showing who we really are and bring it to the surface and let it become something new if we choose. So that just all came up, and that was really spawned by what Brendon's saying there about being triggered. The other thing that was really interesting with the twin soul definition that Brendon brought up for me, it reminded me of, I studied Gnosticism for 2 years, 8 to 20 hours a week, like in class, like just really into it. I had great teacher, great books and everything. And one of the sections was Kabbalah, and they talked about Malkuth as earth and Yesod as the next higher level. And I might be remembering this a little bit off. So, however, the idea that they had talked about was this masculine energy, this feminine energy forming the union, and now unifying the polarity of those two energies. And that was the key to escape the wheel of samsara, if you laid it over on that kind of thinking, to be able to escape Malkuth, purgatory, and move into the higher realms. So that just got brought up to my mind on that. And I don't know where anybody stands on that, but I think it's a beautiful thing to consider, is with these divine relationships and these divine unions and whatever they look like, keeping in the forefront of our consciousness that a lot of what we're doing here is part of the ascension process to something higher. And that's the expansion of consciousness, is ascension, the rising or expansion. So just keeping that in the forefront of the thoughts is actually going to move us in that direction. And I think it's just really, it's really beautiful. I'm really grateful for all of you for sharing and being open. I'm going to stay on, but I'll pass the torch over to whoever's got anything to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Iain. And again, to everyone here, this has been absolutely wonderful conversation. And I know we could talk about this for, like hours on end. We'll get close to wrapping it up. But yeah, as we kind of like move into space for conclusion, again, it's like, why do relationships exist? Relationships exist in order to be able to create new things. It's simply put, like a relationship is the merging of it's the creation of the Vesica Pisces, so like you've got one circle and another circle, and then you bring them together, and then you create this space in between, and that space in between, that is the seed, and then that seed is what grows something new. So I mean, obviously, if you're looking at this, it's like, well, my goodness, yes, if you bring people together, the most literal example of that is the fact that you can birth a human, you can birth a child, you literally create life. But again, like, it's the dynamics of bringing two people together to be able to create something new through the experience of discovering who we are. So it's like, like that's the thing that I think is so powerful about relationships, and why I think we should actually be consciously seeking relationships while still being very present with the ones that we currently have, is because, in each unique relationship, there is something there for us, be it a friendship or be it whatever, even if it's a relationship with someone who you don't really get along with, maybe it's a family member, maybe it's a bully, maybe it's an ex or something like that, whatever the case may be. But within each of those relationships, it's not just like the relationship itself that you receive, it's the way that you get to see yourself show up for it, which is very interesting. So for an example, if it is like a relationship that you're really feeling like a heart connection with, I know for me, this was really exciting, because when I started getting into relationships, when I started dating and stuff, not only was I getting to meet this other person for the first time, but I was also getting to meet those parts of myself for the first time, the parts of myself that got to see how I would show up intuitively within my own nature as a kind, caring, compassionate boyfriend, as a partner, as someone who kind of just like naturally wanted to be able to kind of like carry this energy of like a romance, like a courting kind of energy, and really just like wanting to be able to just kind of like be a kind of like a something like solid within that person's life, and I think in a lot of my relationships, I seem to do that, not even in a way that like it was consciously, but more just my nature would be that, like all of my partners, and again, it just was what it was, and I don't think this is really too unique to my circumstance, because we all deal with our own stuff. All of my partners always had like, there was something was rocky, like there was something going on in their life, and things weren't like fully calm. And then I would kind of like show up within their life, and then like I would be this presence where they would be able to kind of like spending time with me for the most part, except when I was probably being annoying, because I mean, it happens to the best of us. But spending time with me for them was kind of like, it was like a place where they, kind of what I was talking about earlier. It's like a place where they could feel safe, a place where they could relax and everything like that. So for me to be able to see myself kind of create that dynamic, like I said, I got to meet that part of myself, and I got to become aware of that part of myself. And then I got to become aware of that part of myself and how I could apply it to other things as well, which, I mean, you guys see here, for those of you who have been tuned into my circles, I mean, I've hosted how many of these circles, you guys keep coming back. This isn't me, yes, I'm trying to create a safe space, but this is also me just kind of exhibiting my nature to be able to do that. And so I think through any of us, when we get into these conscious, like, again, it's like the relationship doesn't have to be a conscious relationship. We just have to bring consciousness into any relationship in order to be able to grow out of it. And so when we do that, again, start getting like, I think like curiosity is something that we want to bring into any relationship. Like, like what is there within this for me? And again, it's not just like, oh, I'm only in this relationship because I'm trying to get something out of it. But again, you receive by giving. And so I think in the most part in relationships, this is where, for me, when I was reflecting, I'm like, trying to understand what true love was. For me, simply put, true love was the act of wanting to give, and wanting to be able to like help assist another person on their path, and wanting them to be able to like, you know, fulfill their dreams and live their life purpose. And this was a big kicker for me. And this came out of, you know, like in post like breakups and everything like that. For me, like deep love, like I didn't just call it true love. I created my own term. I called it deep love. For me, deep love was wanting the best for another person, even if it didn't involve you. And that was something that I had to go through my own healing with, because I noticed there was a period where, like, you know, there was like a relationship breakup, like me and my girlfriend at the time, like we were kind of like getting into polyamory, and she was like kind of like starting to see another guy, and I wasn't really like totally able to navigate it quite in an easy way and everything like that. And then, you know, it was kind of like subconsciously, I was dealing with kind of like this kind of like subconscious like wanting to control, and I wasn't fully aware of it, where I was just like, oh, you know, like I want her to be happy, but preferably if it's with me, you know, preferably if, please be with me, not him, with me, please, like, you know, like I want you to be happy with me, like, right, like I'm just like stuck in this loop. And then eventually, after meditating and really like what I had to do, I had to like visualize and basically create these like conversations within my head, through my meditation of like conversations I was having with him, the other guy, and with my partner at the time, who was soon enough not my partner at the time, and really just being able to speak from them through my place of meditation and just be like, I love you, and I want the best for you, even if it doesn't involve me. And I genuinely want you guys to be happy. And as soon as I was able to meditate on that and kind of release that, it was like this expansion within inside of me. And then honestly, that expansion, you know, kind of goes through shifts and waves, especially with breakups and everything like that, where you kind of feel like it's just like viscerally, you feel like this distortion and within your body. And out of relationships, I think one of the best things to be able to do is kind of like physically move your body, move that energy, like it gets stuck in your body, go on walks, go exercise, move your body, start engaging with yourself. And this is what eventually I learned that, you know, like there is a new relationship, like there is a party with your name on it around the corner. And kind of what we were talking about earlier, I think Kristen mentioned it as well, this idea that like you won't miss anything that's meant for you. So your job, if you're just like getting out a relationship and you're eager for that next one, don't go chase that next relationship. Instead, focus on cultivating like your own inner self-love, like bring up your vibration, so to speak, bring up your vitality, focus on really just like following your heart passion, your heart song. And then lo and behold, like as you do that, you'll naturally just synchronistically, that other person, they'll just show up one day. Like every single relationship that I've had, like when it became that next relationship, it just happened. It just right place, right time sort of thing. It was never like I've never like chased anyone on Tinder or anything like that. You know, I think sometimes when we do that, like that's like, not to say it can happen and everything like that, but usually if we do that, it's like, oh, maybe it's not going to have the substance that it is that we're looking for. But that's the kicker, right? So instead, if we can start looking at breakups as being breakthroughs, you look back and you say, I'm grateful for the time that we've had. I've grown as a result of it. And now I'm ready to be able to open myself up to the new adventures ahead. And again, reminding ourselves that the most important relationship at the end of the day is the relationship with ourself. Everything kind of going right back to what we started. Everything is a sacred mirror. Nosite ipsum, kind of talking about the gnosis stuff that Iain was talking about as well. Like that's the journey. That's what we're here to do. So it's like every time we're triggering each other, every time we're inspiring each other, it's like we are learning, we are seeing, and we're not just learning who we are, but we're also learning who we are not. So over the course of relationships, and eventually as we get into those more conscious relationships, eventually we kind of like reach these levels of maturity and consciousness within our life where we're just like, whoa, like I have arrived. Like I can feel like a deeper connection with my own being. I know who I am, and yet I'm still open to seeing more of who I will become, because it's always chapters. You'll know who you are with the relative circumstance of where you are, but then the chapter will change, and as a result of that, it will bring forth a new expansion of your character. an example for myself, like in the past year, like I said, I kind of became a stepdad, and now I'm in this next chapter of my life where I'm literally, going to be the father of a child. So it's just like, okay, like this is my next step of my evolution. And so for me to just be conscious with it is ultimately all I have to do. And then in the process of doing that, like I'll intuitively just allow myself to show up in the best way that I can in that circumstance. So relationships are teachers, and the more conscious that we can become of that, the more that we can receive from them, and the more that we can be conscious, the more that we can find ourselves kind of like learning the lessons sooner instead of having to repeat them as well, which is again a whole topic in itself. And I would just say quick tip for anybody out here, because I see this a lot. I see it on TikTok, and I'll pass it over to Lauren and Iain and Kristen if she's still there, and we'll just kind of go around one more time with closing thoughts. But yeah, quick tip for those people who, maybe younger and maybe more impressionable and have had this kind of idea of like a twin flame and a soulmate within their mind. Again, don't hold on to that idea too tightly. You can use it as a bit of a mark on your map, a bit of a compass and things like that. But be very careful with how you use those terms. Be very careful if you're telling yourself this idea that just like, oh, this person's my twin flame, this person's my soulmate, I have to, like, this has to work, and this has to, because like you're going to set yourself up for a deep lesson where it's going to teach you to be humble, because maybe it's not going to be exactly what you thought it was going to be, especially if you're young. I mean, God bless you if you meet someone when you're like in your early 20s and you end up spending the rest of your life with them. That's not the majority of the case. If anything, like I wouldn't even want that, because then I'd be missing out on the many relationships still to follow. So again, just kind of like if you can show up in a relationship and just really be present with it where it is at, knowing that it will end. Not that it will like end, but knowing that it will transform as you transform and thus move into a new relationship with a new person, another part of yourself. I mean, you're essentially just dating yourself and different people over and over and over again on a deeper esoteric level. But again, just for you to be able to kind of like hold that perspective, I feel is much healthier, opposed to putting this projection onto a relationship and saying, well, you're my twin flame, so you can't break up with me, or you're my soulmate, you're breaking my heart. Exactly what Iain was saying. It's like, you're making me feel this way, you're doing this. It's like, that is a quick way to be able to, like burn down the house of a relationship. Instead, just let the relationship breathe and let it be what it is. Be very conscious of the labels you put on it. Otherwise, you're going to miss like the purity of its true essence, so to speak. So anyways, just a little quick tip there for all our younger spiritual seekers who are still going through those relationships. Don't forget about the labels. Forget about the labels. Don't even worry about them. Just be present with what it is, and open your heart to the idea, knowing that it will end, quote unquote end. And the fact that it is transient almost will allow you to appreciate it even more. So anyways, the seasons change, and so does everything else. If that resonates with you, drop some 1111s in the chat. I appreciate everybody being here so much. This has been some great practice, just sharing. That's all this is. This is just practice. So let's just go around one more time and share some any other thoughts and closing thoughts as well. So Lauren or Iain, if either of you guys want to go next, just go ahead and let me know, and I'll pass it over to either of you, and then we'll be close to finishing it up here. So Lauren, did you want to go next, considering Iain went before? Yeah, go right ahead if you'd like.
Sure. I just want to send some gratitude to you both, or all of you. I picked up a lot tonight, and it's just interesting to meet new people that are on this path. So I loved what you said about singing the heart song. So singing the heart song, remember that you belong. And that's what I got. Have a good night.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much, Lauren. I'm glad you're able to join. Kristen, I'm not sure if you're there, but if you are there, feel free to jump in. And Iain, we can pass it over to you if you want to just share any closing thoughts and gratitude, and then we'll pretty much be done after that.
Yeah, I feel complete. I really enjoyed having this conversation, and I'm looking forward to seeing your little baby brought it up behind the screen here coming up soon. So thank you for putting this together and inviting us all here. And thank you everybody that shared, and everybody that's been in commenting or watching here. Go check out more of what Brendon's doing here. He's really creating something very, very unique. And check out his Patreon and all that stuff. I did a call with him, and it blew my mind how much time and commitment he gave me for what what I put in to start. Thank you so much. Thank you, Brendon, so much. And check him out. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Iain, so much. And it's felt very natural having you just jump right in here. That's one of the beautiful things about, like, and again, speaking on the dynamics of relationship, a very powerful idea that I always kind of hold is this idea that, like, we're connected with the people we haven't met yet. We're connected with people before we even meet them. So, like when we have those synchronistic moments, even if it is like virtually and online, usually you'll feel that, like become aware of the subtle energies, and you'll be able to kind of like pick up on that and be like, oh, like there's a connection here. There's a familiarity here, soul family, soul tribe, whatever the case may be. And so, Iain, thank you for joining in. And for those of you who may be tuning into this as well, who are more familiar with Iain than they are of me, welcome. And I'm so grateful for your support. And happy to be able to continue to build this awesome community. Just to give you guys a quick plug, me and Iain, we're going to be hosting an event coming up. We actually have a date set for it. It's going to be a collaborative event with Portal to Ascension. If you guys are familiar with Portal to Ascension, our friend Neil, we literally just like had a meeting about it today, so we're going to have more details on it, and it's going to be about the 14 laws of the universe, and we're actually going to do it in like a part 1, part 2, part 3. So the first part will be like laws like 1 to 3 to 4 maybe, and then we'll come back a couple weeks after that and continue that. And so I'll be kind of co-hosting that, and Iain will be speaking in it, and Iain's got a lot of cool stuff as well, so be sure to check him out on Instagram and check the link in his profile, and you can check out some courses that he has there already online as well. So that will be March 10th at 8 p.m. EST. So it'll be like a Thursday event, but it'll be like a special Thursday broadcast. We'll talk more about it as we go, but I just wanted to give you guys a heads up so you can get excited about it. So with that said, Lauren, Iain, everyone in the chat, everyone listening in the future, thank you so much. Again, just concluding thoughts, the most important relationship is the relationship you have with yourself. Just keep bringing mindfulness, be gentle with yourself, be curious, know that everything is there to be able to help you learn, hold space for yourself and for others, be compassionate, be empathetic, and go out of your way to express that kindness and help lift each other up, and communicate with your partner, and just check in with them and just be like, is there anything I can do for you? Is there anything you need? If you want to talk, let me know. Those little things make the big difference. And just be you, and I'm sure you'll be exactly where you need to be in order to learn what you need to learn, and that will take you from one relationship into the next, and that's how we grow. So we'll wrap it up there. All the links that you need for this are in the info for this video, the Discord, the Patreon, the links for all the creators. Kristen, do you want to say anything? There's still time. Even just jump right in. Go right ahead, Kristen. Please do.
I'm sorry I missed the end there,
Good.
but I want to say, like, this has been awesome. It's been lovely listening to you guys talking about this topic. And I think relationships are super important, and doing it consciously is just the best way. So nice to meet you all. And pleasure hearing your thoughts on the topic.
Beautiful. Awesome. Thank you, Kristen. Thank you for joining. And everything that you need are in the info for this video. Join us on all those platforms, connect to us on Ibble, and lots more stuff coming up your way. So if you guys have more thoughts and comments on this, leave them in the chat, and feel free to reach out to me as a direct message anytime, and be sure to connect with these other awesome creators. We love you guys so much. Have a beautiful rest of your day, wonderful weekend. And until next time, we'll see you guys around. Much love. Keep it shift, everyone. Bye, guys. Bye, guys. We love you. Take care. Thanks again.